But tonight is our first crypto class. I want to welcome everybody because it's going to be a short intro, giving you bits and pieces of things you need to know. There's going to be some homework, and I'm going to challenge you at the end to actually do something, take action. And I'm not going to give you a pitch at the end to join DeFinity FI if you're not already part of it. Hopefully you'll see the value in what we're doing. You'll ask for more information about the whole, that whole presentation. But what I'm going to give you is bits and pieces of what's important to understand about why crypto, why now, and tell you a little bit about myself. Before I even get started about my background, I am about making things simple and easy for people to understand. That's always been my approach to anything, even prior to cryptocurrency, when I was coaching and teaching others in other aspects of business and life. It was all about breaking it down, making it simple so people can understand. It can be daunting. Anything new, anything challenging can really scare a lot of people off. And so what we want to do is bring that to you. And our whole premise is to bring education to people, bring it to the masses, because there's so much potential with the cryptocurrency and blockchain space out there, but there's also a lot of noise. There's a lot of scams out there that we also want to protect you from. So this is not a hype project. This is not something we're going to say we're going to give you 1 to 3% return every day or every week. We're not promising returns. We're promising you're going to learn. And if you take action and do what we teach you, then you will be able to benefit and participate in this massive movement that's happening in the cryptocurrency space. And at the same time, you may be able to share this with friends and family and others so they can learn as well, so they don't miss out. I tell everybody, look, in 5 to 10 years from now, and that's my estimate on time. It may be sooner, it may be later, but at some point, everybody in the world will be using cryptocurrency one way or another. And in some cases, they may not even realize they're using it, but not everybody is going to be able to participate and benefit from getting in early, learning about it, and benefiting financially. It's no different than the internet right now. The .com boom and a lot of the early .com things that happened in the late 90s and early 2000s. Those that got in early really benefited and profited from participating in that movement. But we're all using it today, right? We're on it right now. So that's why technology is important. It's important to understand. So as Heather mentioned on blockchain, Wayne, she gave a great introduction. So I don't need to go too deep about that, but just know about 5 years. Well, actually it's almost 6 years now. Well, almost 6 years ago, I got involved in the cryptocurrency space by purchasing my first few Bitcoin. And it was, I heard about it years before. You look at it, you dismiss it, think it's just a fad, it's going to pass. And one thing I noticed is it never went away. Even when it was very volatile and there would be these massive crashes in what we call price, it would still come back stronger and stronger every time, stronger than ever. So finally in 2016, I took notice, decided to get in. And once I was holding my first bit of cryptocurrency, I realized that I needed to learn about this. All right. Because I'm not one to just invest in something or put my money into something without truly understanding it. At that point, I took the advice of a friend that told me, quit ignoring it, just get involved, take a chance. And I did it. And then when I started to realize the implications of what this can do, then I realized how important that was. So that's what I'm going to show you tonight. I'm going to give you a little teaser. We're going to do these classes every Monday and Wednesday right now at this time. And there's going to be recordings available for people that may have missed it, that want to watch it. But I'm not going to go too deep into topics. That's what our academy is for. But I'm going to give you enough information to make you dangerous, to make it to where you have a taste and you want to go deeper. And some of the stuff you could do on your own, and other topics you may want to learn more as you really understand what they truly are, and dig into the academy. So this is something that you want to pay attention. Also within the academy, you'll be able to get on live trainings where we're going to allow you to ask questions. And this is really a community driven project. You're also going to see a lot of the trainings that I use. Just 5 minutes before this, I was finishing up some touches on a PowerPoint I put together a while back for this, but I wanted to make sure I had some of the most up-to-date information, tie it into what's happening in the world today, make it relevant, and not just give you a cookie cutter presentation of what crypto, why crypto. So with that, let's jump in. I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully I've got capability to do that. If not, we'll get that started. But let me start this PowerPoint here. All right, Heather, how is that? Can you see the PowerPoint?
Yes, we can.
All right. So let's go from the beginning. How about now? Can you still see it?
Yes, we can.
All right. So I love using this picture. This is a picture I made a while back. If you're familiar with the Matrix, this is how I feel when someone asks me to explain cryptocurrency to them, because I know it's usually a one-sided approach where they're wanting to understand, what is this? Should I invest in it, or can I make money? And it's so much more than that, because this is a technological revolution that could change the world. There's people all over the world. There's almost 6 billion people in the world that don't have access to, or enough access to, financial tools and institutions. There are only about 1.5 billion people in the world. And many of us on this call are the lucky in that few that are able to participate in financial markets. Cryptocurrency gives anybody access to it. And you know what, how cheap cell phone technology is now. Many third world countries and many places that maybe not even have, running water in a village, they have access to basic cell phones, and even some cases, the cheap Nokia smartphones, because cell towers and solar panels and so many different things give them access that anybody can have a bank in their pocket. So I'm not going to go too deep right now on that, but it's just, there's so much more to this. And when you understand how this can impact the world, you realize why it's important to get involved. And when you understand what happens with our money system, that'll also, do that for you as well. So why does it even matter? Why is it important? And that's really what you should ask yourself. And a lot of times I go back to the problems it solves. Now, one of the problems it solves, it hedges against inflation. And this, I originally used this particular slide about 3 years ago at an event, and nobody was talking about inflation then. We were used to the usual 2 to 3% that we'd see, that it kind of just chip away. There wasn't a whole lot to it. Sorry, can you all still see my screen?
No, we lost it.
Yeah, we lost
you.
it.
All right, it changed. Did somebody else share or something? Yeah, somebody else is sharing. All right, can you take away access for anybody else to share? Because that's what happened. Somebody else shared their screen.
Let's see what happens.
All right, you see mine again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
There you go. That's even better. Okay.
All right. So it hedges against inflation. So we just heard that there's record inflation over the last year. It was just announced recently. You're talking about 7.5% inflation because of what's happened, and they'll try to blame it. Just recently they're trying to blame it on the Ukraine-Russian situation. I'm not going to get into either side of that. But the whole point is this has been happening because we don't have sound money. No matter where you live in the world right now, you don't have sound money because those that control the money have diluted it. And I'm sure we can all agree 7.5%, what we've seen in the US, that's what they're claiming. But how many people today are going to the grocery store, going to the home improvement store to buy building supplies? Is it only 7.5% more than it was last year? No. Food, fuel, and building supplies are way more than 7.5% over last year. So we're seeing prices rise, and it's not because of goods being scarce. It can be blamed on the supply chain, but we've seen this happening over time, and all the printing of dollars over the last few years is starting to catch up with us. And then when you understand how fractional reserve banking works, how do the banks operate? There's a reason why, and I think everybody here, most of you here may have already heard this already, but if we all decided tomorrow to go get our money out of the bank, they wouldn't have enough money to give us because they don't hold the reserves. They don't hold the reserves needed to give us. So they take in our money. We have a balance showing of what we typically have. And then they loan out, it used to be they were required to keep 10%. And now it's way less. It's down to 0%. Most banks have 0% reserve requirements. So they can loan out everything. So you see how that can cause problems when it comes to our currency system. Is creating money that's not really real because it's just numbers in a computer when our money is actually being loaned out to other places. So if you store money in a bank, especially in savings, the reason they don't pay you anything is because they're utilizing it. They're making the profit off it. So cryptocurrency gives us peer-to-peer permissionless transfer system. I'm going to talk about that and how it relates to current events as well. And it also solves a double spend issue. And now this is just related to digital transactions, because if you research, Bitcoin was not the first cryptocurrency. It was the first successful cryptocurrency. There was many attempts at a digital currency prior to Bitcoin, but there was always problems. One of them being double spend, which means it's a digital item. So if I send Heather one Bitcoin, I send Twan that same Bitcoin before Heather's transaction is approved, it could create a double spend issue. Well, Bitcoin and new cryptocurrencies since Bitcoin have solved that problem and been able to do that. Well, Bitcoin solved it and others have replicated it. All right, let's see. All right, so this is a book this is one that I personally like to talk about because Robert Kiyosaki, many people in the space, especially a lot of people in network marketing as well, familiar with Robert Kiyosaki. Most people in finance also teach about the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and Cash Flow Quadrant. He has a book called Fake, and he talks about fake money, fake assets, and fake teachers, and how we're taught the wrong way about money. Most people don't understand how money works, myself included. I'll tell you, until I went down the rabbit hole of what Bitcoin is and why cryptocurrency even matters, I truly didn't understand what money was and how it operated. And I just use a statement from where it says fiat currency. If you're not familiar with that term, fiat currency is any currency that's created by the government, and the only thing that gives it value is by government decree. Nothing backs our dollar. Nothing backs whatever country you're in. There's nothing that backs your currency in your country other than government decree. Many people still think that I run into today that still think the dollar is backed by gold, and it's not. It hasn't been backed by gold since Nixon was in office. And that was in the 70s when they ended the gold standard. And so nothing backs our money. So he says fiat currency is the government's money. Gold is God's money, and Bitcoin is the people's money. So that's just a quote from him, just to get your wheels turning and really understand, what do I really know about money? What do I really know about currency? And we really go in depth in the academy, and you're going to see those when we launch those courses, because we've created a lot of content around just the history of money, why money, just to understand the principles of money, because understanding what cryptocurrency is, it's a digital currency. It's still a currency. So how does currency work, and what makes sound money, which good money, and what is bad money? And I would say that sound money is money that is, and we're going to go through those characteristics, because the same characteristics you see in Bitcoin and blockchain. Now there's still some issues with cryptocurrency being very volatile because we haven't hit adoption stage. So that's one thing that stops it from being 100% sound money, but that is a path that we are on. And then you see here, history shows us that technology is never embraced at first. And the picture on the left, I'll tell you, it's funny because at the top, we think about the car. The car is a great invention. We can get anywhere. We can go anywhere. It's amazing what vehicles can do for us. But when automobiles first came out, it wasn't openly embraced. It was many people that saying, why would you need cars when we have perfectly good horses? Why would you need that when the roads were designed for horses at the time? So they were dirt roads. They were very bumpy. They had a lot of holes in them, and many cars would break down or the wheels would fall off. And so many people joked at, and laughed at the people that were utilizing vehicles at the time. But where are we today? Once that infrastructure started going into place, where you had good roads being built and vehicles really evolving, as far as that technology evolving, you see what we have today. And the point of this picture is, you think about countries that tried to embrace technology, and you think about how the US and other countries that were powerhouses in the automobile industry, because they embraced the technology and really went after it. But in the UK, this picture is actually from England. In the UK, they passed a law in the early days of the automobile that to operate a motor vehicle, you need to have 3 people to operate it. You need to have a driver, you need to have a spotter that sat next to you, and you needed to have a flagman that walked in front of the vehicle to alert people that a car was coming. Now, that type of regulation, really stifled growth, and it stopped the UK from ever really becoming a powerhouse. Now, eventually they revoked those crazy rules, but you look at them today, they've never been a powerhouse when it comes to automobile. That shows you the difference of embracing technology versus trying to restrict technology. And that's what happened in that picture. And then the picture below that, the internet is just a fad. That's just what it was. That, there was many articles in the early days of the internet. Why would people want to do that? And I even think, because I just was talking to someone today about how people used to think of how crazy it was to put that credit card numbers online to purchase something. They would think their whole identity would be stolen. I would never do that. That's crazy. And what do we deal with today? Everything is online. It's in either an app or a website where we're purchasing things and they're showing up at our door, whether it's through, the mail, whether it's through UPS, or whether it's through food delivery services or grocery delivery services. But in the early days, it was looked at as it was not going to be adopted. And then on the right, you see here, JP Morgan, their CEO, Jamie Dimon, said that Bitcoin is a fraud. So this was in 2017. I remember this was about a little over a year after I got into cryptocurrency. He came out very publicly talking about Bitcoin's a fraud. It's not going to make it. And then just last year, they say their investors could make Bitcoin 1% of their portfolios. Prior to making the statement, they had already started offering it to their wealthiest customers. And what does that mean? Of course, they're going to offer everything to the customers they have with the most money first, because they want to give them the inside scoop before they share it with your everyday person. But now it's even evolved to where they're even making statements about the future of Bitcoin now, and it's in a positive light. Jamie Dimon, the CEO, still is not a fan of it, probably because of his pride. He doesn't want to be, doesn't want to come out and say that he was completely wrong, but his company's actions say that. So that's where we are when it shows technology. Cryptocurrency now, you may think, yeah, Bitcoin came out in 2012. In 2009, sorry. And by 2012, it was publicly traded on exchanges. People were able to go to exchanges and trade cryptocurrency for dollars very easily. And then it evolved over the next few years. But we are still early because this has a long way to go for adoption. You're talking about an archaic monetary system that's ruled by many governments, and it's slowly catching on. People are slowly starting to realize that this is the way, that decentralization is the way. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes, but they're starting to wake up to the fact that, this could be the future. We live in a digital world. Digital currencies just make sense, but there's so much more potential when it comes to cryptocurrency and the blockchain. In fact, currency is just one app that's on the blockchain. There's so many things that you can do. So back to what I talked about with the history of money. Let's talk about the US dollar for a second, because the dollar, whether you're in the US or not, the dollar has been the world reserve currency for quite a while now. And in the early days, the top one is what a dollar looked like. If you look real close, I don't know if you can see it on the screen you're looking at, but it says silver certificate on the top of that dollar. And the $20 bills would say gold certificate. And it eventually over time changed to where it said Federal Reserve note. And that's what replaced it, because it went from money to debt. And the graphic on the right just depicts fractional reserve banking. You heard me mention this a second ago, where I talked about fractional reserve banking, where you deposit money into a bank account. Now that bank is loaning that money out on the markets. They're making a hefty return on their money, but they're not paying you anything. But here's what happens on the backside. If you deposit $1,000, and this was based on a 10% reserve. So remember I told you some banks don't have any, not some banks, most banks, if not all, have no requirement for any reserves. But let's just say they're required to keep 10% of your deposit. You deposit $1,000 into the bank. They keep $100 in reserves, and then they loan that $900 out back into the market. And then now someone takes that $900, they deposit it into that bank or another bank. They keep $90 of that in reserve and loan out another $810. Rinse and repeat. That say someone takes that to another bank, they take that $810 and they deposit that into another bank. And now there's $81 in reserve, and they loan out another $729. That's just 3 levels, right? So at this point, that $1,000 initially has created $3,439 into the monetary system, but the bank only has $271. That is how fractional reserve banking works. And you and I don't benefit from that. But I tell you, if we tried to operate a business like this, we would get in trouble very fast. And a lot of what's happening now is, as more people are starting to wake up to this and trying to take their money out of banks, they're having issues. We're starting to see kind of cracks in the system when it comes to that. Banks are still necessary. They're still important in this current day. Cryptocurrency could change that in the future. So I'm not saying we're going to eliminate banks tomorrow, but just understand when technology starts to shift, then you need to shift with it, because at some point you're going to be a user, but are you going to benefit from that shift? And I tell people all the time, whether or not, we adopt cryptocurrency today or in the next 5 years, our kids, our grandkids or future grandkids, and in the future, they're not going to understand or even know about a world with banks. You're going to tell them that, hey, back in my day, I had to deposit money into a bank and wait 2 to 3 business days for it to clear. And they're going to think you're crazy, because settlement can happen instantly when it comes to cryptocurrency. It can happen instantly and with complete trust that the decentralized chain that you're transacting on, it's going to happen. It's going to go through. Nobody's going to block it. Nobody's going to stop it. It's not going to be fake money. It's not going to be counterfeit. It's going to be 100% legit because there's a system designed to do that. Technology evolves, and we don't need the old technology as it goes on. You think about cell phones today. Just about everybody, I'm sure everybody on this call has some sort of a cell phone. And, when you think 20 years ago, we probably are a little bit longer. We probably all had what we call pagers, or some people call them beepers, on our pocket, where somebody would beep you. You get a page in and you have to look, and it will give you a phone number. You have to go find a phone to try to call them back. That technology still works. It's just there's no need for it really because technology has evolved and we don't need it anymore. This system right here is still going to work. Banks at some point are still going to exist, but we have a better system, and one that can include a lot more people that are excluded from these current financial systems. So that's why it's important to understand this. And these are all just basics because I'm giving you the why. Why is this even important? Why do I need to learn about cryptocurrency? Most people want to jump in and know, hey, what do I buy? Where do I buy my Bitcoin? What do I do this? If you don't understand the why behind it, it's really going to be hard to stick with that. Remember I told you early on that cryptocurrency is still very volatile because we're still in the early stages of adoption. So when you could see values drop 10, 15, 20% in a day, because we're still very early and it's very volatile, if your belief's not there and you don't understand the why behind it, that's when people abandon it and run away and say, oh, this is just a scam. I just lost money. And that's why it's important to build that rock solid belief, because for me, when cryptocurrency drops in price and Bitcoin drops in price, I'm actually happy because I'm so confident in the future of it that I know I get another chance to buy it a little bit cheaper with some more money and I can put some more in. And that's just me personally. Everybody has a different risk appetite, but when you understand it better, then you help to reduce that risk. So this is the purchasing power of the dollar. And this was just the 2011. I think if I got a newer graphic that showed all the way up to today, it'd be a lot more, but you can see the dramatization of it as far as over time from 1913 to 2011, what's happening to the purchasing power of the dollar. Prices go up because the purchasing power of the dollar is going down. And, this middle headline was something that was just a year ago after the House passed a 1.9 trillion stimulus bill. And CNBC said, here's what's next. And they were talking more about what's to come with the stimulus bill. But I added this picture at the bottom saying, yeah, inflation is coming. And a year later, remember, I just told you we had record inflation. It doesn't take rocket science to figure out what's happening with our money. And we need to diversify into scarce assets, into something that cannot be diluted like the dollar can. The Federal Reserve can just hit print and more dollars will be, put in the creation. You can see that in that last graphic, that big red spike, that just shows the money creation, the national debt over the last, call it, 70 plus years, and how much it's really spiked from, we see what happened in 2000, 2010 to 2020. And if I looked at the dollar creation or the printing of new dollars, it would correlate with this graphic because that's what's happened over time. And Satoshi Nakamoto, who's the anonymous creator of Bitcoin. If you're not familiar with the history of Bitcoin, we're going to teach you that as well. And the reason it doesn't matter if we know who Satoshi is because the code works. Anybody that understands code and understands math can look at the code, evaluate the code, and see that it truly works. And over time, it evolved and more computers started running Bitcoin nodes. And that's what led to now thousands and tens and hundreds of thousands of computers are currently running the Bitcoin network. And all you need to know is that it keeps everybody in check. You may not trust each person individually that you don't know, but as a collective, everybody in this network is looking at everybody else and stopping any bad actors from happening. If someone tries to inject anything bad into the network, everybody else is running the same program, so all the computers can reject it. And that's at the core essence of decentralization. Decentralization is there's no need to trust each individual person because you trust the collective because they have a vested in financial interest to make sure that that network stays incorruptible. And the Bitcoin network has never been hacked. It's been running 100% of the time since Satoshi Nakamoto started running it on I don't want to say he, because we don't know if Satoshi Nakamoto is a man, is a lady, is a group of people. So let's just say when Satoshi started running it, and then others started getting others involved to run the network and secure the network and eventually grow. This was one of his most powerful quotes. It says, the root problem with conventional currency is all the trust that's required to make it work. The central bank must be trusted not to debase the currency, but the history of fiat currencies is full of breaches of that trust. Look back in history. I challenge you just to Google bank money laundering or bank fines and see how many times Wells Fargo and JP Morgan Chase and other banks have engaged in illicit activities, and all they've had to do is pay a fine. Yeah, the fines may be in the millions of dollars, but to them, that's a drop in the bucket to what they earn. So they're and then you look at what's happened with the Federal Reserve and the central bank, as far as there's no oversight there. So we're constantly seeing breaches of trust, constantly printing new money to debase the currency that we're holding. That means the money that I put in the bank and I worked hard for, say your loved ones, the money that your family has worked hard for and put in the bank and saved for a brighter day, as that money is being inflated, which means that the purchasing power is going down and down as it sits in the bank. It's devaluing the work that was done to earn that currency, and that's what's happened. History is full of breaches of trust. So what are cryptocurrencies? They're virtual or digital currencies that are used to exchange goods and services through an electronic transaction system without the need of an intermediary. Remember earlier I mentioned peer-to-peer. It's carried out through cryptography to ensure transactions and control the creation of new coins. Bitcoin has a program in it to where there's only going to be 21 million Bitcoin. Now we think about Bitcoin and we may think about dollars. Dollars going to only be broken down to the penny. So, 100 pennies per dollar or whatever your currency is. There's only so much to it, but Bitcoin can be broken down and is divisible to 8 places behind a decimal point. So even if one Bitcoin becomes $1 million in value, I can still send Heather $5 worth of Bitcoin to pay her for services or to pay her for something, to pay her for being awesome and introducing me, so that is what's available when it comes to that. And other cryptocurrencies since Bitcoin have all been some iteration of another alternative, something maybe that Bitcoin doesn't do. There's no zero-sum game where one of these cryptocurrencies is going to be it. There's going to be a few cryptocurrencies that are going to come out, but as you start to learn, right now there's tens of thousands of different cryptocurrencies, and most of them, and I hate to say it like this, most of them are garbage, but you'll learn how to research projects, how to look at which ones are legitimate, which ones are really doing something. Ethereum is not a competitor of Bitcoin. People always say Bitcoin is the number one in overall market value in cryptocurrency, and Ethereum is number 2. And people that hear that think that Ethereum is a competitor of Bitcoin. Ethereum does something completely. Ethereum is like the decentralized internet, that network of the blockchain. And there's so many different applications and DeFi, NFTs and so many other topics you're going to learn about in the space that are built on top of the Ethereum network. And there's other alternatives to the Ethereum network that do other things that may do the same as Ethereum, but maybe their network is not as congested as Ethereum. So you'll learn different things about different cryptocurrencies and the chains that they reside on. And you better make better decisions as far as which ones are legitimate that I want to look into more and which ones do I need to dismiss. Anybody can create a cryptocurrency. You and I can create one today. We can create the DeFinity dollar if you want. And if we do that, the only thing that's going to give it value is going to be the development we put behind it, the utility we put into it, and the demand for it to be utilized. How is it going to be used? What's going to be the use case for it? And what's going to be the demand? Because if you have a fixed supply, but you don't have any demand, overall prices are not going to go anywhere. They may go up briefly, but they're not going to sustain value unless you create more utility. But if you have like Bitcoin, 21 million Bitcoin total that's ever going to be created between now till it's set to reduce every 4 years over the next 100 years. So if there's a fixed supply and demand continues to rise, it doesn't take someone with an economics degree to understand that values will go up. There's going to be some volatility price along the way. But if you zoom out and look at that long-term picture of what's happening with Bitcoin, as the utility and demand goes up, the price is following as well. The value of the network is showing. So it all started January 3rd, 2009. And this is the headline that is quoted. So the first block of Bitcoin was mined in January 3rd, 2009. And when Bitcoin is mined, and you may be, if this is new to you and you may be wondering what is mining, We'll talk about that later. It's in essence, it's how when the computers are all working together, like I mentioned earlier, and on the Bitcoin network, and every 10 minutes, a new block of that blockchain, block of information is created, and new Bitcoin are released onto the network. That is considered mining. Those computers that are earning those blockchain rewards for both the mining rewards and also the network transaction fees. So in the first block of Bitcoin in 2009, this message was put in there by Satoshi Nakamoto. This headline: Chancellor on the brink of second out for banks. So think about what happened in 2008, global financial crisis. A lot of real estate markets collapsed, stock markets collapsed, and we saw a lot. What happened? The banks, everybody was getting bailouts. Banks were getting bailouts. Companies were getting bailouts. Did you and I get a bailout? No, we didn't. But companies were getting bailed out, and it exposed a corrupt system to where it's okay if you fail and have bad practices. These big businesses and banks are just going to be bailed out by the government creating more money and giving it to them. So this headline was about that, and it was a statement to show that Bitcoin is a change. It's something different than you've ever seen. It's an exit from those financial systems. You and I, prior to Bitcoin, had no choice to say, if I don't like using my country's currency right now and I want to use something else, what do I use? I mean, you could use gold. It's not very feasible, hard to travel with if you want to buy something large, but we didn't have much of an option. And cryptocurrency gives you that option of what you want to do. All right, so let's talk about what's happened since. So in 2021, these are some of the headlines from last year. Tesla says they bought 1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. That was around actually this time last year, because I remember I was actually in Miami filming a promo video for our Miami event when Tesla announced that they had bought Bitcoin. And then in June, Bitcoin bill in El Salvador passed to where they made Bitcoin legal tender. Now, El Salvador had been on the US dollar for the last 20 years since their currency collapsed. And so they've been using the US dollar. The average income of someone in El Salvador was the equivalent of $260 a month. And within 2 months of El Salvador making it legal tender, what does that mean by making it legal tender? That means businesses in El Salvador had to accept it. Now, people didn't have to use it. It's not like they did away with using the US dollar. They gave people an option, but people that want to pay in Bitcoin had the option to do that. And within the first 2 months of this happening in El Salvador, there was more people in El Salvador that had Bitcoin wallets set up than those that had bank accounts prior to this announcement. So what does that tell you? All of those people that were excluded from the financial systems in El Salvador in their own country were able to join the market without having to worry about hoarding and holding cash and paying these outrageous fees just to convert paychecks to cash. They were able to transact and have access to the financial markets again. And that's what happened. And also MicroStrategy is another large company that's been buying billions of dollars of Bitcoin because they realize that this is the future. This is the future where it's going. And if you ever want to, listen to why Bitcoin, one of the people I like to look at their speeches is Michael Saylor. Michael Saylor is the CEO of MicroStrategy. It's not just about his company buying Bitcoin. If you listen to his why Bitcoin, because when he gets interviewed all the time, people ask him that, he will tell you why, and you can really see the conviction, and it really helps you to break down some barriers and see, okay, this is true. This is what's happening. So this is why we need to look at an alternative system. Mayor Francis Suarez of Miami has actually, this was actually from last year, whenever he said they were exploring state legislative priority, paying employees in Bitcoin and investing city treasury in Bitcoin. And they've done it. Square, another company that owns Cash App, has also been purchasing Bitcoin, because if you go into Cash App, you can buy Bitcoin. They're giving access to all of their users to be able to purchase Bitcoin. And, this is a quote from Blythe Masters, one of the founders within early days book and other tech companies. And she said, you should take blockchain technology as seriously as you should have taken the internet in the 90s. Many of us may have missed out on that boom. I was coming up through high school and college right around that time. Even went to school for computer science, but being able to benefit financially, no, I didn't put any finances into that. So I wasn't able to benefit financially from that. So when I see this and I see the potential of this technology shift, I realize what it can do. So let's talk about what's happening right now at this moment. I'm not going to go into the politics of what side you're on. Just understand, I'm talking about utility and demand and use case for Bitcoin. So if you paid attention to what's happened recently, There was a trucker convoy in Canada where a lot of truckers in protest of different things happening, including pandemic mandates for them to do different things. They staged a protest where they basically shut down several cities by just having this long line of trucks. And there was people that believed in that cause. So like I said, I'm not going to get into either side, whether you believe it or not, but this is about freedom. This is about freedom. And I'm not saying for them, I'm talking about freedom to transact. And what Canada did is they froze the bank accounts and froze the GoFundMe funds of people that were donating to that cause, that believed in that cause. And the Canadian government took that money. So then it shifted to where people started donating Bitcoin. People started donating Bitcoin to them because they believed in the cause. And Bitcoin is peer-to-peer. Remember I said nobody can stop it. Nobody can seize it. Nobody can take it. You have true control over it. So that is an option. If your funds are frozen for any reason, then you can participate in the market still. And remember, I talked earlier about inflation. I've met two people past. One of them was an attorney from Venezuela. And when Venezuela went through hyperinflation, when their currency value almost went to nothing, imagine working your whole life to save money, and then that money becomes completely worthless. That's what happened in Venezuela. It was a dire situation. And the fact that he had Bitcoin allowed him to still provide for his family whenever that currency first collapsed and people weren't able to buy food. It was a tough time for many people there. And then I met a driver in a town in the US, but that driver was actually from Zimbabwe, and he would send money back to his mom. And with Zimbabwe experienced hyperinflation as well. And with the varying rates of exchange, sometimes he would send money to her, and by the time she got it, it was worth 40, 50, 60% less than what he sent. So imagine trying to send a family member $100 to help them out. And by the time they get it, it has the value of $40. And that's what was happening. So he started sending Bitcoin, and he started talking to the shop owners and other people where his mom shopped in that town about accepting Bitcoin and what Bitcoin was and how to check the value of it and everything else. And eventually they created their own ecosystem, their own economy on top of a failed economy. So that's what it gives you. Crypto donations poured in after the Ukraine government asked for Bitcoin and Ether. So 17 million in this week has been sent for people that are behind the cause in Ukraine. Now let's talk about it. No matter what you feel or who's at fault or who's right, who's wrong, there's innocent people on both sides of the border, both Russians and Ukraine, that want nothing to do with what's going on right now. And they just want to live and provide for their family. And if money gets frozen, if you can't transact for one reason or another, that can affect your ability to provide for your family. Cryptocurrency gives you an option to where you had that fundamental right, freedom, that fundamental human freedom to be able to transact and interact to provide for your family. The media will tell you that cryptocurrency can be used by criminals. You know what? US dollars is the #1 currency preferred by criminals. But cryptocurrency is not good. It's not bad. It's just neutral. It's how you use it, right? It's how each person uses it, just like any other kind of money. It doesn't matter. Is it good or is it bad? It's how you utilize it. And there's a lot more people that are going to use cryptocurrency for good than the few bad actors that are going to use it for evil, for money laundering, or to avoid sanctions like the media is going to tell you. So, and it's important you understand this, because when you hear the media talk about Russia's going to use cryptocurrency to evade sanctions, you're going to think, oh, cryptocurrency is bad. No, cryptocurrency is just a vehicle. How is it used? There's also going to be millions of people that are going to use it to provide their livelihood for their families. And that's what you need to think about. And then a couple other things on this slide here. I know it's maybe hard to read, so I'm going to read it to you. The bottom, the small print in white was Canada. The Canadian government sent messages to cryptocurrency wallet companies asking them to freeze funds and also provide a list of who owns what wallet. And this was their response from the Nunchuck wallet. It's a cryptocurrency wallet. It said, we cannot freeze our users' assets. We cannot prevent them from being moved. We do not have knowledge of the existence, nature, value, and location of our users' assets. This is by design. It's self-custody, which means you have 100% ownership of your money. Your money in your bank today, if your government decided you were doing something wrong, even if you were not, they could freeze it and seize it, and you would have no control over that. Cryptocurrency is different. And I'm not saying that's going to happen to everybody, but you need to understand that when you adopt cryptocurrency and you teach people and you educate people about why cryptocurrency, you are helping spread the word that could impact those people that need to know about it, that could be, that could be, a consequence of life or death if they understand how to utilize cryptocurrency to survive and thrive and provide for their family. And the last part of the statement is kind of funny because they said, this was their last statement: please look up how self-custody and private keys work. When the Canadian dollar becomes worthless, we will be here to serve you too. So that's to one of the wallet companies. And then the top right is an update on El Salvador. And it says El Salvador's, when you look at El Salvador, since they made Bitcoin legal tender last year, they've seen 13% growth in January this past month, from January to January last year. So another double-digit growth over the year. They've never had a double-digit GDP growth before 2021. People are realizing that, this is something that's important. So El Salvador is seeing a benefit from adopting Bitcoin as legal tender. What do you think is going to happen as other countries see this and they've maybe struggled with their own currency, or they use another country's currency and they've never really escaping poverty? They could see a potential here to benefit from that. And then the bottom right is just a tweet from Dan Held, very well known in the cryptocurrency space. He said, we would not need Bitcoin if we could trust banks, if we could trust people, if we could trust the government, but we can't. And that's why we need plan B with the Bitcoin symbol. So Bitcoin is just an example. There's other cryptocurrencies. There's several other ones that can do different things that are important when it comes to transacting. Imagine a day where you buy a piece of property. Instead of getting a title to it, you actually get a non-fungible token. That record is stored permanently on the blockchain to where nobody can alter it. No one can change it. I know people in countries, especially in Vietnam. I know I have some friends that when they were kids, their family had to flee Vietnam because of the war, and they lost everything. The government just went in and changed the records. They had a lot of property. They owned lots of boats, and all of a sudden they didn't own anything because the government changed that. Imagine an indisputable ledger that stores information that cannot be altered. And it's important. It's important. We may never have to worry about that today, but what happens over time as freedoms erode. So we want to make sure that we're setting up the world for where we want to go. And cryptocurrency is about freedom. It's about taking, right now, the way most structures in the world is we're governed by the select few that govern over a bunch of people. And if you flip that model upside down to where the masses keep those select few accountable for their actions, blockchain can do. It can make things more transparent. It can make it to where everybody can see what's happening, and it keeps a level of accountability to where we can all have a say so in how we live, how we're governed, and how things happen in the world that we live in to make change for the good. So blockchain can do for business what the internet did for communication. So blockchain within businesses, it can do so much. It's distributed, it's immutable, which means it can't be changed. Smart contracts eliminate the need for a third party. I don't know how it is around the world, but if you've ever bought a house in the US, you have to pay a company to do a title search, which means they have to research to make sure that title is clear for them to be able to sell it. Imagine all that information being at your fingertips already, because it's all stored on a blockchain, and then you can transfer ownership with a simple smart contract without having to pay someone to change that. Imagine a smart contract where a smart contract is just a contract that's designed to execute if certain parameters are met. And say maybe I deposit the money, you deposit the title to that property, and when the smart contract senses both criteria have been met, it releases it to each other party. There's no need for a third party to pay someone to make sure that transaction happens. And that's just one example. That can happen in every facet of business and life that you think of right now, where we need third party validators and all that. It gives you trust without the need for a third party. So where are we headed, and what do you do now? So there's a lot of things you can do. This is the challenge I was talking about, where you want to make sure you get in, and I'm about to wrap up. You want to make sure that you get in and learn. And one of the quotes I use, it's from a mentor of mine that always used to say this: to know and not to do is not to know. And what that means, it doesn't matter how much you know. It doesn't matter what you just learned. You need to go out and research different things, and also start looking at, where in my country, where am I able to buy cryptocurrency at today? I'm not telling you to go out and buy it just yet, but there's nothing wrong with starting to create your accounts and starting to set up, whether it's Coinbase or whether it's Binance. Some of the ones I have here, Cash App, Gemini. Those are just exchanges of where you can buy cryptocurrency. I'm not telling you to go buy it, but start looking into them. Start looking at Strike App is one. Strike App is the one that designed the wallet for El Salvador, for that country. They have a special wallet where people can utilize their Bitcoin, but it's also available in every other country. I utilize the Strike App to buy Bitcoin every week. So that is an option. And then at the bottom here, these are two market aggregate sites, CoinGecko.com and CoinMarketCap.com. So, you know, the recording for this is going to be shared. So if you need to come back, if you forget this, write it down right now. If you don't have a pen, come back to it. But those are sites where you can look at the whole market. It gives you a ton of market information and just start to get used to it. It's going to look like Greek to you at first. So it's the same thing if you go into Coinbase and create a login, or you go to Binance and you create a login, create an account, or you download the app. You're not going to know what you're looking at yet, but we're going to get to that. You're going to, the more you learn, it's bits and pieces every day. You have to learn a little bit. You're not going to understand cryptocurrency tomorrow. You're not going to understand blockchain tomorrow. You're going to understand cryptocurrency trading or DeFi or NFTs or Metaverse in a blink, but we're going to walk you through those steps. So what do you need to know? What do you need to learn to do that? There's also one of them I don't have here, but there's also different cryptocurrency news sites so where you can keep up with what's going on with crypto. If you Google Bitcoin right now, or cryptocurrency and anything like cryptocurrency and Russia right now, you're going to see your CNN, your Fox News, MSNBC. They're all talking about how, oh, crypto's bad because Russia's going to use it to evade sanctions. We talked about that already, about how cryptocurrency is used. It's used for good. It can be used for bad. It just is, you know, it's going to, but for more often than not, it's going to be used by people for good and people just to provide for their families. But you don't understand that if you just follow the mainstream media approach. The mainstream media was also the one that told you that cell phones would never be adopted. They were also the one that told you that the internet was just a fad. So get your news from a cryptocurrency site. One that I recommend that I like to go to is Cointelegraph.com. Cointelegraph, because yes, just like any other media, there's going to be some biased pieces. There are going to be pieces that are written from journalists that may be biased one way or another, but you get a little bit better information from there. And any of their articles that are paid for, like paid articles, they mark them to let you know that those are a paid article. So not saying it's bad information, but just know that the person writing that article is biased towards the company that they're writing about, or the project that they're writing about, or whatever else it is. But we're going to go into more tools. There's tons of tools, and the more tools you have in your tool belt, the better. So my challenge to you is to figure out what's available to buy cryptocurrency in your country. You don't have to go buy anything today, but start looking at the requirements to set up an account. All of them should be free accounts. You can create a login, create a password, set up security. A couple of things I recommend when it comes to security is make sure, and this is for anything, and this should be for your banking stuff, and most people aren't doing this, but go back and use a different email address than the one that you give out to everybody. So if you're going to a store and you have a loyalty rewards program, or a random Joe comes up to you on the street and you have a conversation, they ask you for your email address, that's a different email than you should use for these, especially your financial accounts, whether it's banking, crypto, whatever. Make sure that you're using a different email address, you know, and set up a different one that you don't share with everybody. That gives you one layer of protection. Use a secure password. Don't use the same password for everything. The harder you make your password. And then last thing is to use anytime it allows you to use two-factor authentication. Google Authenticator is one that's a basic level of security, entry level security, to where even if someone can't hack your username and your password, they still can't get an account without that Google Authenticator code, which is synced to your phone, which changes every 30 seconds. So those are different things that you can do to protect yourself. Let me stop sharing this because we're done with the PowerPoint here. So I said a lot in this, and I know for some of you, it's probably some of it's over your head. As you start to do it and look into it, it will start to make sense. You'll start to learn more. And when we launch the lessons that we've been hard on behind the scenes, you're going to see a little more in-depth information. And then we're going to do webinars, multiple webinars weekly, to help you understand what's going on. What do you need to learn? What's important to learn? Because let's face it, I mean, there's some things most of you probably don't want to understand the mechanics of how does a blockchain truly work, and what is the code, and what is the code, what does the programming actually do? You just want to know it works. Just like when you get in a vehicle, You don't really care how that engine works in the vehicle. You just want to make sure it's going to work. And how do you operate it to get you where you need to go? Well, this is a vehicle that can get you where you need to go. You just need to understand how to operate within it, how to utilize those different features. And we're going to get into sending cryptocurrency, receiving cryptocurrency, how to pay people, how to stake. What is staking? How do you earn a passive yield? What is DeFi? We're going to show you all those topics that are important to make sure that you have the best chance for success. Like I said, we're not going to promise you any returns. We're not going to say you get into this, you're going to make 1 to 3% a day. Most of those programs that guarantee you a return, especially something that high, is not legitimate. But we realize that education is the key. But education sometimes is not very sexy. It's not something that's very attractive. So we're also going to show you the important parts of how to learn this. What do you do? What are the mechanics? If you want to you hear about yield farming and you want to learn how to earn money from yield farming, we can show you how to do that. Now, there's many different levels of risk in that, just like spice levels. What's your tolerance for risk? Because there's different risk levels depending on what you get into. For instance, in DeFi, you can get into DeFi and see some projects, some yields are paying, 300% annually, or some of them are paying 20% annually. Well, the ones that have the higher yield are much riskier than the ones that have the lower, more stable, more realistic yield. But we teach you all of that within this program. So talked right at an hour. I know I can probably talk for a lot longer, but that's where we're going to end tonight's lesson. And I just challenge you to make it a point to learn a little bit each day. And that's one thing I've committed to since I first got into this space. This is so important that I'm going to make sure that I look up or read something, look at articles, learn what's going on, follow what's happening in the space. And that's really helped me. And as we go, we're going to teach you different resources of what you need to know as far as where to follow, what to look at. There's some great resources out there, but they're scattered everywhere. And there's a lot of noise. There's a lot of garbage in there too. So we're going to help filter a lot of that noise out and help you focus on what's important in this space for you and anyone that you care about. Because I tell you, everybody in the future will be using cryptocurrency. And the more you can do to teach them to embrace this technology now, the more successful they're going to be in the future as technology shifts. It's going to shift. As I've showed you in the slides, it's better technology that's existing when it comes to our monetary systems. It's only a matter of time before the shift gets bigger and big. And you're starting to see that narrative change. And you saw it today. Some of you may not even know much about cryptocurrency, but if you look at that, CoinGecko or CoinMarketCap that I told you today, just look at the price changes in the last 24 hours. A lot of people are really jumping in and realizing that cryptocurrency is big. And we saw the market make a massive move up today. And that's exciting. You haven't missed anything if you're not in it yet, but don't wait too long. Too many people wait on the sidelines. And you hear those stories time and time again, 10, 15, 20 years from now. I got in, but I didn't have belief. So I got out. I sold everything. And that's whether it's no matter what technology we're talking about. So with that, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you all. I don't know, Heather, is there anything you wanted to say to wrap everybody up? Or are we good to go?
Oh, we're like good to go. I did my writing. It's so funny is when you put that book up there with Robert Kiyosaki, I ordered it immediately. I never saw that book. So now it's on its way to my doorstep. Thanks for that.
It's an audiobook too. I love audiobooks, so you can get it as an audiobook as well.
Yeah, I ordered it. I want the paperback. I want it. I like the paperbacks, but thank you so much. This was amazing. Guys, we have this again Wednesday night at the same time, but I'm going to turn this over to Twan for some last words. But thank you, Wayne. Awesome.
Thank you. Is Twan here?
Yep. I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
Awesome stuff. Well, first of all, I thought that was incredible. Believe it or not, I think exactly what you said, Wayne, is that most people are just sitting there and they're thinking about, they want to know what hey, let me turn on my camera real quick. There we go. Yeah. So like I was saying is that most people, they just want to look at, hey, how do I make money? Just tell me what coin to buy. Tell me which one I need to trade. Or they start talking about, hey, just tell me which platform I can stick my money in. But they don't realize that 90% of the people end up getting slaughtered. And even the context of your education, just today, I took a ton of notes. There's the thing I took from just watching it is that it's like a relationship, you know, like how do relationships in a marriage stay long term? It's when you get to know the other person, when you respect that other person, and then from there, that's what you're going to get out of that relationship. It's like respecting it, and it goes with money too. You know, anytime you ever been to an education seminar, maybe you have never have, but I have gone to where they said most people don't know how to make money because they don't respect the money. So they actually, whatever money that comes in, it comes right back out. So what I've learned from today, just listening to you, Wayne, is that it's really about really understanding the technology and understanding it, believing in it, because they've done studies on this. They said that the people who actually are just coming in to make a quick money, to make a quick buck, they end up never participating in the cryptocurrency market ever again. They did it once. They said, "Oh my gosh, that was terrible. I had a worse experience," and then they never come back again. Whereas the people who, they say that studies show that the people who actually start mining, right? They actually bought a Bitcoin miner or like an Ethereum miner. Those people that were never into the tech, that actually forced themselves to get into the technology, end up respecting it. And long-term wise, those people have become extremely very wealthy. Why? Not because of the technology, but because they learn to appreciate the technology. And that's one thing I noticed on today's education. So Wayne, that was amazing. Up to you if you want to have anyone share any closing thoughts, but that's just my thoughts. I think this is huge. I think everyone's got to invite one or two people to next Wednesday. And I think that's going to be very, very important. So that way we can actually spread the word and empower people with this type of education. So that's my thoughts. And we'll go from there. So anyone else have any closing comments before we wrap things up? I think we're good.
Yeah. Sharing is caring. Yeah. Bring people here that you care about. As you can see, there's no hard pitch. There's no anything, because we just want to educate people. We want to teach people how to get involved in this. And Twan's right. You know, those people that invest in mining that stick around longer, they have that belief and that commitment, and it's no different than anything else. So the more you learn, the more you understand, the more you can grow long-term, to where, like I told you, it doesn't matter to me what happens with the price of cryptocurrency today, tomorrow. If it drops 50% tomorrow, I'm going to be excited. And I've had friends along the path that, you know, first they thought it was crazy, and now they understand, because this time, go back 2 years ago, right at this time in 2020, Bitcoin was, and other cryptocurrency was in a massive descent from 10,000. Say Bitcoin was at $10,000. It went to 9,000, 8, 7. And within a few days from now, 2 years ago, it dropped down below $4,000 for a brief second. And then it started coming back up. And you know what happened after it started coming back up? The massive run that you saw happen last year. So there was people that got out that thought Bitcoin was dead in 2020. And they realized that this was just, price action doesn't really mean anything. When your belief of where the future is going and all the infrastructure that's being put into this is not a fad. This is not something that's going to fade out tomorrow. This is a long-term goal, and it takes that commitment, and you can benefit financially from that. You hear those stories where people make a quick buck, and you usually don't hear the backstory of how many people lost on those same things, and also those people that do make that quick money, like Twan mentioned, a lot of them, it doesn't last. You know, follow up with some people that made millions in 2017, and a lot of them have lost it today. But those that stuck with it and continue to dive into the space and educate, those people that made it, or are making it today and making an impact, making a difference. In some cases, some of those people went from investors to project developers, and myself included. I went from just an investor to, I've worked with a lot of projects, consulted, helped them on the backside, helped them with education and marketing to reach consumers, because I realized how big of an impact this could be for the future. All right. Anything else, Twan?
I'm good. I don't know if anyone else wants to say anything before we wrap things up. We want to make sure that we're open as a community, but we're good to go. I mean, anyone else want to say anything? I know, Clinton, you're unmuted. You want to say something, or we're good?
It's fantastic stuff, Wayne. And starting at the ground level like this is phenomenal. And I just think it's fantastic that this is being shared with the community as general, and that this isn't a sales pitch. This is an education concept. And I really appreciate that a lot.
Thank you, Clinton. Appreciate that.
Very cool. Very cool. Anybody else? Last comments and questions? Looks like we're good to go.
All right.
All right, guys.
Yeah, looking forward to seeing everybody Wednesday. Like I said, show up, bring some friends. I'm gonna touch a little bit on what I talked about here, maybe go into a few other different topics. This is going to be high level surface stuff, but we're going to get you pointed in the right direction of where you can learn, where you can go. And then whenever the courses start to release, you'll see that it's really deep dives in a lot of this, and really the meat and potatoes of the mechanics of how to do each process. So, all right, everyone, have a great evening. Twan, anything else?
No, we're good. Thank you so much. We'll have the recording available for everybody, and appreciate you, Wayne, for always giving and providing this amazing information. You sacrifice the time to learn so that we can actually receive. So we appreciate that.
Cool. Thank you, Twan. Good night, everybody.
Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. And good night, everyone. Bye, everybody.
Good night.
See you, Robert. Thank you, Heather.